How will Web3 impact our future as a civilization, as a species? Hello, I'm Head of Bluefield and welcome to the channel. To answer the question, none of us really know, but in this video I wanted to give a quick insight with just looking at a few different aspects of life and how Web3 could disrupt and impact us all. I say us all, starting with the first world, moving its way to the second to the third. And what does that look like? Is it good? Is it bad? A lot of it will come down to personal taste. Do we like the idea of more connectivity, more interaction within the internet, where it starts to become engaging with further senses that we've never before experienced? Or do we hate the idea of it, dislike the idea of it, love the idea of it? Let's explore. Web3 is a disrupting technology, and how much will it disrupt our lives? Well, think of the internet when that came to play. Now increase that by a magnitudinal order to give you the impact of Web3. Look at life, compare it to what it was like in the 80s, the 90s compared to today. The connectivity we have, access to knowledge, access to people that we have now compared to what we've never had before. Web3 is going to be an augmentation of that on another level. It's digitizing the world, quicker access, quicker connectivity, quicker access to knowledge. Now we find it incredible these days that we can just open our phones with a question and Google it. Imagine seeing that as outdated and old and slow. Imagine viewing the concept of picking out your phone and Googling something the same way that we look at finding a dictionary in the bookshelf somewhere and researching a word to look through. How slow, how mundane, how boring is it to try and scroll through this? Not necessarily boring, but how slow would it be compared to just whipping your phone out and going, hey Siri, what does this word mean? So many aspects of our lives will be lived out in the future within a virtual reality. The transfer of value, of communication, connection will all be within this world of the internet, which obviously can present some positives or negatives. If you look in the world now of Instagram, the toxicity of seeing influencers and others. When we think of Instagram, it's just a highlight reel, the best bits of our lives, and yet we sit here as viewers looking at everybody's incredible lives thinking, oh, why can't my life be like this? Why can't my hair look like that? Why can't I have that wardrobe? Why can't I have that height? Why can't I have all these different components? And yet these are just the highlights of people's lives, and we're not seeing the other 99.9% of what is actually going on for people or inside their minds. So that could be exacerbated by Web3, or it could be improved and give us clearer access and more deeper connection with one another. As well, many other things, you start to see currencies move online, moving away from fiat currency potentially, where there is no sort of government control or government tries to step in within crypto and other digital currencies in order to take control and take cuts. But otherwise, it's completely separate for now from that fiat currency, where we start to see other digital assets, NFTs and such, collectibles on a digital platform. And think now where everything we've had in our lives, that receipt, that ticket for that game, the ticket for that theatre production or movie, poster we had, the portrait we had painted, the caricature drawing we had, the photo we took, these can all become digital assets, collectibles that we have within our own lives, but in a digital presence. So now instead of having books and scrapbooks with different articles in and different pieces we've collected through our lives telling the stories, these can all be transferred digitally. So how will it impact different various aspects of our lives? So let's take learning. Think with a podcast, in the second generation of the internet, with podcasting and videos, we're able to access conversations, information that we could never have imagined. For example, I listened to a conversation between Will Smith and Jay Shetty on Jay Shetty's On Purpose podcast. Listened there for an hour and 40 minutes, whatever it was, to a wonderful conversation. A conversation between Will Smith and Jay Shetty. How would I ever access that but through podcasting or through YouTube content? These are just people that are unreachable. Physically, they're hundreds, thousands of miles away, but also these are celebrities or some of the biggest movie stars in the world, and yet I'm able to sit down as if I'm there and I can just listen into the conversation. With Web3, it will give you all five senses. You will be in that room. You will interact with them virtually, but it will come across as though you are in reality interacting with this person, communicating with them, shaking their hand. And the value that can be taken from that access to these conversations, I do wonder what further value could be accessed by engaging the other senses with such people and such individuals, and quicker knowledge, quicker access. It may be to the point that we'd be able to download information directly into our brains without having to listen to it. That we are therefore, there's a book, there's knowledge, rather than sitting there for weeks on end reading it, I may just be able to download it into my brain to have that knowledge, which seems extraordinary, but seems, I mean, on a personal note, it loses the value. You put a lot of work into gain this knowledge and you study it, you research it, and as part of that longevity, the reward is you are now wise in such a subject. That could be lost. It might not be. I haven't got a crystal ball. I can't predict the future. I don't know what it looks like. But this is why I wanted to dive into a bit of the basics around the impact of Web3 and how our future looks. And that can be said for schools, or rather looking at schools in college, university. We've seen over the course of the pandemic how a lot of courses are now online, a lot of learning's online. So now as students, you would connect on your laptop and just spend all day staring at a screen. Web3 has the ability to have you in the classroom without being in the classroom. If you, within your class, how many of you have been sat in a history lesson, engaged and interested by the story? But imagine if you could actually access that as if you were there. It could take you back to the pyramids in ancient Egypt, and through digital creation, you could see, feel, smell what it was like to live in those days. I probably wouldn't want to learn so much about World War II then. That'd be quite traumatizing. Think if you've ever been on holiday and been to a famous person's residence, a house, that could all be achieved in the day of their lives through Web3. If you were to see Winston Churchill at his desk working away, we have access to people's own creative outlets of what that looks like through film. We have access to his home, but with Web3, you could actually be there with Winston, having conversations and dialogue to learn even more in more depth. And other lessons in school could all be achieved, like geography. Rather than learning about different stones in a book, you could go to caves, explore them, go underground, all through virtual reality. You could see tectonic plates shifting, all through virtual reality. You could see a tsunami wave, a volcano, lava, ash, all through virtual reality. English class, you could go back to Shakespeare at the Globe Theatre and sit and hear him speak. Watch his play from those times, in in virtual reality. You get where I'm going here. What about working world? What do our jobs look like? Well, will become a point where we can access, we've already seen, as I alluded with education, it's the same with work. How many of us now have spent the last couple of years at home on some sort of makeshift desk, the coffee table, the kitchen counter, the breakfast bar, with our laptop, joining in on Zoom calls with the cat crawling across the desk and kids tugging at your arms. The world is going in more of a remote direction where we can work almost anywhere. There's limitations, like for example, in my industry, in my business of gardening, there's no way that can be done virtually. We would need to be in the garden, we would need to be in the grounds, we would need to have our hands on the mower, mowing along. I can't have people like ship over their grass to me and I trim it and ship it back. But with Web3, that can be achieved. We amalgamate that with the emergence of robotics technology, and you're starting to access a future where manual labour is removed. We no longer have to work mundane, monotonous, dangerous jobs. And once they're taken over, we then don't have to do other work. So we've seen this in a lot of industries already. For example, like in the supermarket now, how many of us actually interact with someone at a checkout when we've all got self-service scanners? You've now got one person that's observing 12 tills and checkouts rather than just having a person per checkout. Some of us see benefits, some of us don't. There's obviously pros and cons to either side, but the world is transferring in that direction where, well, as Amazon's sort of forecasted with their future stores, you wouldn't have any interaction with any human beings, and in fact the store would be run without humans, completely managed by robots. That will work its way down to even like my industry as itself, of robots will then start to take over the jobs of caring for gardens or painting houses or building houses or fixing vehicles and all manner of industries. Essentially every industry, as humans, we will no longer have to work. This is my opinion or my theory based on what I know, but do your own research and see what you think. Let me know in the comments below. That's the way the world works, where we may step away from every industry where we can achieve it from our own, the safety and comfort of our own home, or we may not have to work. I do believe in the future, looking decades into the future, we will have a structure of universal income where as human beings. We are not required to work. We do have support. We do have currency, and a lot of the life essentials are met just by this funding we receive. So therefore, how does leisure change? What does leisure look like in a world of Web3? And this is an interesting concept where I start to feel like in our own home we will have the VR room, and in our own homes, our own space, we wouldn't necessarily need any excess space there. I almost see this redundancy in having a mansion or having a big fancy apartment or anything, because as long as you've got a VR room, you've got everything, you've got anything. If the imagination can perceive it, it will be in existence within the virtual world. If you want to go for a dog walk in the countryside with your family and meet up, if you want to go to the beach, if you want to go to Hawaii, if you want to explore Niagara Falls, if you want to see the Great Wall of China, that can all be achieved through virtual reality, where you can explore, engage with all the senses with your family, be there without being there. Imagine the concept of actually being able to walk along the Great Wall of China with your friends, with your family, be able to smell the smells, be able to feel the wind against your face, the touch of someone's hair as it catches your hands, the feel of the rock as you move your hand along the wall. It's all bizarre, and it seems far away, but that is where the future of technology could take us. You're probably thinking, and I would agree with you here, of just like, why would I want that? Like, that takes away the value and the beauty of the actual real experience. If we're just, what's the point if we just wake up and go sit in a room all day with some goggles on, or walk along in this virtual room of climbing on different obstacles, but we're just in this room? And I agree. Really, truly, if you cannot feel the difference between the experience, does it lose its value? Or does the fact that we've got access to anything and everything is therefore what the value is lost in? Because, well, for me personally, to get to the Great Wall of China, I've got to fly halfway across the world, spend a lot of money, spend a lot of my time, and really think about it. I've got to plan this trip, plan this journey. It takes a lot of organisation, a lot of work to actually get there. And so the reward of being able to see that, it's taken a lot for me to get there. And therefore I wonder if I can just put on some goggles and I'm there, and there's no difference to the experience from my own human perception, is therefore the value lost because, well, it didn't take me anything to do this. Anyway, moving on. And we have this, if you think about how you interacted with the world and written text, video format, when it first started emerging in your life compared to now, we can just flip through TikTok or Instagram, reel after reel, all kinds of value content. And even now, if we try, for a lot of us, if we try reading a book, we will lose interest. Our attention will be misguided elsewhere within minutes because we can't gauge with it. We can't focus on it for too long anymore because we're so distracted by what's going on. So therefore, will this exacerbate in the idea of a virtual world where we can just connect to anything? And then looking at the fears of things or benefits data, with our lives and existence in a digital format, we are therefore going to have even more data collected on us, which from a safety perspective is brilliant. It means that it can do a lot to reduce crimes, to help save lives, illnesses. If you've seen like the new Apple Watch advert where there's just like an emergency call to the ambulance and it's like, this person's Apple Watch has monitored their heart rate, stop, they're now laying in these coordinates and we cannot access them and communicate with them. Like, that seems amazing, that concept that you can have your life saved by your watch. And that, with access to an augmented reality, to a virtual reality in Web3, that only increases where more of us, especially if we've got like brain chips and stuff, more of our vitals are monitored where we can see how we're going. It would be like you wouldn't even need a checkup. Your, I don't know, we won't have phones, but your goggles or your screens that you observe can just say, oh, Hayden, by the way, you seem to be eating a lot of fats recently. Your fat levels are not looking too great, but here's how to solve this problem for you. You don't even need a checkup, which obviously would be a great benefit. We can all keep a lot healthier. Oh, we've noticed on your stats that you're feeling a bit stressed and agitated at the moment. We would recommend, while you're normally meditating for 15 minutes a day, we recommend if you up that to 30 minutes a day, and also start increasing your yoga practice. Or if you ever catch up with this person, it will bring you a wonderful conversation that will calm you down and help cool your nerves. Would you also like us to access a life coach for you to get some more insights and more value? Oh, great idea. But again, does the ease of the access ruin the experience? I don't know, I can't, again, I don't have a crystal ball. But it does mean on the downside in terms of data, you will have mass companies with access to all the, if you think they have loads of information now, wait until we're in a virtual world. which means that you could potentially have a world controlled, I mean, depends who you speak to, whether we do or don't, but you could have a world controlled by very few in the aspects of if we're in a virtual world, what can be filtered. Like you see this in certain cultures, North Korea, China, where certain access to the internet is limited, or what you can access on the internet is limited. You could have a world where in a virtual world that is completely controlled. You're only allowed to access certain people, you're only allowed to access certain things, certain activities. Pyramids don't exist anymore. All different concepts, or yeah, you could take this down a very dark rabbit hole or lift it up to give us all more awareness, but there is that potential in the future with data. But overall, is it looking good or bad? I mean, my own personal opinion, I guess if you're watching this video, you're curious of my own opinion. I'm like really on the fence. I can see a lot of benefits and how it can bring great improvements to life, but also I can see how it exacerbate many different features and components and potentially create an even worse sense of self-worth within us through our own depriving connection. We're not having real connection, but that could be improved with, as I said, like in an augmented reality, all those senses are engaged, they're there, even to the point that we potentially have interactions with lost loved ones if they are gone from the world. If you've seen like episodes of Black Mirror, they explore this in the world, but obviously with provincial rudimentary prototypes comes the risk of it not being authentic. Whereas if we reach a level where someone's life could be recreated digitally, obviously that opens the door for all sorts of infiltrations and framing to people's lifestyles, but it also means that we could access people and they would never be gone from our lives. Again, I think there's a natural order of things. There's a reason nature, humans, animals all follow this cycle of we're born, we exist, we die, that perpetuates, we have experience, we have a limited time span on this earth. It's something that hopefully on my podcast, Benevolent Business, I will dive into a lot more detail with experts in the industry and with futurists, with technological experts and analysts to see what our future really looks like. Started working on a book that is the world of 2050 and my own perception of what I think it will look like based on my own knowledge and understanding of emerging technologies that are up and coming. I hope this has been interesting, hope it's been value for you. Of course, if it has, as always, please make sure to subscribe, as you'll get plenty more videos along the lines of this, and we'll be exploring much more of Web3, as well as subjects on investing, on trading, on mindfulness, on ethical wealth generation. So stay tuned for more videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.